Climate campaigners just celebrated a momentous win in Canada after a fossil fuel company, withdrew its application to build a tar sands mine in Alberta, Canada. So now the CEO has admitted that because of the growing debate over fossil fuels and the climate crisis is the reason they pulled their application. And so, wow. Now, Tech Resources President and CEO Don Lindsay, in a letter to Canadian Minister of Environment and Climate Change Jonathan Wilkinson, noted that questions about the societal implications of energy development, climate change, and Indigenous rights are critically important ones for Canada, its provinces, and Indigenous governments to work through. That, and of course, the massive amount of activism on because of from those groups made it so that it was too much of a hassle to do this tar sands mine. Awesome. Now, the CEO also said that it is now evidence that there is no constructive path forward for the project, and that the public opposition, of course, that Teck has faced over Frontier will continue to impede other fossil fuel projects. Now, the promise of Canada's potential, they said, will not be realized until governments can reach agreement on how climate policy considerations will be addressed in the context of future responsible energy sector development. Without clarity on this critical question, the situation as faced Frontier will be faced by future projects, and it will be very difficult to attract future investment, either domestic or foreign. So basically, thanks to the activists, this company realizes there's not really a future in fossil fuels, that they will get too much pushback, and that is awesome. Celebration, right? So now, the environmental group 350.org said this on Twitter: when the CEO of a major fossil fuel company releases a statement like this, it's a good sign the tide is turning. The group's Toronto branch also told climate activists who fought against Frontier, this one goes out to you. We will continue to fight because our planet and future is at stake. 350.org based in Edmonton. This is Emma Jackson, an organizer with the Edmonton group, said this: make no mistake, Teck abandoned the Frontier project because people are standing up to demand real climate action. This is a chance for Canada to come together and start building a Green New Deal. Now, in its letter, they said Teck mentioned the need for a real climate plan, and we agree. But instead of pushing fossil fuel projects that divide our communities and only benefit a wealthy few, our government needs to commit to a rapid, just transition that respects Indigenous rights, supports working families by creating millions of good unionized jobs, and it gives Canada the best chance it has to meet our global climate commitments, added Jackson. Now, Greenpeace also welcomed this by pointing out the country can now focus on creating jobs that help solve the climate crisis instead of contribute it. And then you have the LEAP, which advocates for systemic change to address the climate crisis, inequality, and racism, congratulated Indigenous opponents of the Frontier mine in a tweet. They also added, corporations like Teck know our government what our government refuses to. We can't afford new fossil fuel investments in an era of climate crisis. So look, that's awesome. The lesson here is activism works. Protests work. Governmental pressure works. And so they did all of that. And now you had the corporation that couldn't take the heat that decided, okay, we're just going to pull out of this, not going to work. That's amazing. And this shows how when people get together, they can influence the world. That said, it is kind of an embarrassment for Trudeau's government. Why is that? It's because they were currently making, before this pullout, they were going to make a decision on this mine. I don't know where they were going to go, but knowing Trudeau's support of fossil fuels, even though he's supposed to be, more liberal, right? Basically, the Obama of Canada. I've seen that comparison before. There is a chance that he could have approved this, that his government, that his administration, because they have been developing the tar sands. They have been developing fossil fuels in Alberta. And so that is a problem. Now, another piece of evidence that kind of points out that, again, the Liberal establishment government of Canada was still in favor of doing fossil fuel projects is because they still have fossil fuel projects moving forward, including an expansion project for a government pipeline and other projects that are against Indigenous communities, right? And climate activists. And so that's a problem, right? And now, Amara Poussin, this is Canadian campaign director for 350.org, said Trudeau should be embarrassed that Teck Resources, a massive fossil fuel company, has recognized the tide turning against fossil fuel expansion before his government did. Whether it's Teck, Frontier, Coastal GasLink, or Trans Mountain, history will not be kind to politicians or corporations who ignore these projects' impacts on Indigenous sovereignty and our climate. And I agree, it is embarrassing. And so it kind of reminds me of, the election going on here in the United States, where you have only one candidate that is truly promoting a Green New Deal. The complete transition away from a fossil fuel-based economy into renewable energy. Bernie Sanders is the only one. And so he's put forward a Green New Deal proposal. You don't have that from Pete Buttigieg. You don't have that from Joe Biden. Joe Biden basically plagiarized from someone else their plan. And the closest thing you have to it is Elizabeth Warren's, Blue New Deal, I think they were talking about, which, again, prioritizes cleaning up the ocean. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But not doing entirely what's necessary to transform our energy system into something that is sustainable and promotes zero emissions, that is carbon neutral. And so the choice is clear. I mean, if you actually care about the environment, you have to go progressive and big and bold, because this is a problem that's not going to sort itself out. Bold solutions for big problems. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.